Like I love when I get to see like people who have their kids with them and then the kids get involved. We were just talking about it like right before. And sorry Chaz, but my nephew Chase just sent me a video where he was like Cielo, miedo, and I was like, this is amazing. I was like,
That's
it's
the
so much fun.
best. Like
Yeah.
I have my kids, like no matter where we are, like even as a family, like the whole Zero Miedo thing, like just like when no matter where we are, if Roman Reigns songs play, we all acknowledge. No matter where we are, we all just stop. And it's the funniest thing. Like even my like one or two of my kids, like they like wrestling, but they're not like I have two that love wrestling, like
Yeah.
wrestling, like they'll watch it, they want to go to all the shows, they want to do everything. There's like another one. It's kind of like he'll kind of like wants to do more of his own thing, not really watch too much. There's
Yeah.
one that could care less. She just sits there like, ugh, okay. But that one in particular, like those other things that we do, it's just part of the family, like knowledge and the Zero Miedo and like even the Yeet thing. That's the new one. We all do it, and it becomes part of like the traditions between everybody, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's if you can draw anything like to wrestling and you can draw someone just based off of like a reaction and stuff like that, like it's the best. Like I know my daughter for the longest time, she when and this will tell you like how long ago it's been since she's watched wrestling, but she could quote the entire Enzo like promo like
Yes.
verbatim and she was killing it. And
I'm just
that's
saying, Enzo's gonna be at a show that I'm gonna be at soon, and I'm like pumped. I'm like, oh my god, I want him to do the whole spiel. I'm
yes.
like, he needs to do it because my kids remember that spiel, the whole thing is soft and whatever, all that
Yeah.
stuff he says.
I
So your
think it's
daughter used to quote the whole thing. That's awesome.
yeah, and that's what I think. I mean, it's just it's and then getting that connection and tying it all in. Like my daughter still likes Bayley and Mercedes Monet, right? She knows that she's left and she's no longer Sasha. Like she loves all that stuff, and I think that's important. Like man, like if like that's how my daughter and I we sit back and we chill. Like we talk about everything under the sun, but like wrestling is kind of like our draw. Like we can talk
Right.
about wrestling and have so much fun with it, and then one of her favorite wrestlers is a New England legend, Willow Nightingale, and like she still talks about Willow like all the time.
Right.
Yeah, so it's cool. And then every once in a while, like we've had Willow on the podcast too. So every once in a while, I might shoot Willow a message from Kira that's like, "Hey, good luck tonight," and then you see
I
Willow
love
like send a heart back because she's got a heart of gold. She's an amazing person. So
course.
yeah,
And I think that's really cool. Like you said, it unites people in that way. Like for example, like in my house, like we like Mondays, it's Raw Day, and Royal Rumble, like we literally do like how the people do like the pools,
yeah,
and like we do a thing where the kids pick all the numbers, and whoever wins gets a prize, and we have like the big pay per views. Like we do all those big. Like I remember doing them with my friends when I was younger, but now we do it with our kids. So
yeah,
it's really cool. And like the cool thing about you being in the business and doing the podcast and stuff is you can have that little bit in with them. Like for example, like Mercedes Mornay, like I know her as Mercedes KV and Sasha because I wrestled her in her first match ever. So like when she like made it and all these things, like my daughter like used to love her. So like one of her first Halloween, she dressed up as her. So I'm like sending her a message like, look, my daughter like loves you, blah blah. So it's awesome that they do that. Like, and if you would bring your daughter to a show, say you bring her to a show, like you could be like, hey, this is my daughter, and it like makes the kids feel like even more part of it. I
yeah.
love it.
And they get that connection too, and then they get to meet future stars and stuff like that. Like, yeah, my daughter, I took her to a show. We were in DC, and it was a show that I wasn't working at. I wasn't wrestling. I was actually there to just show face because I really wanted to help. And I ran into Willow there. Trisha Dora was another one I ran into, but that I mean, just going there and helping set up the ring, also putting in my sweat work led
Right.
me to the opportunities that my daughter got to go and experience and see all these other people just start to rise. And I was like, yeah,
Mhm.
see, like you remember that person, remember this person? And she's like, yeah, I remember. So,
Yeah.
and they remember her, which is even better. So I'm just like,
Yep. Yeah.
uh, but again, sometimes you're gonna have to protect the kids when it comes down to it because some people decide that they go
Uh,
cross the barrier, they don't need a cross, which
yep.
we're not gonna talk about. We're not gonna talk about who, but they're gonna know when this
Yes.
episode drops.
Yes. Everybody knows, and like, and I've Like, I will say very little about it simply because of the fact that I'm a big believer of bad press is press, and
Yep.
I don't like giving people press that they don't deserve. So it was what it was. People like to be judgy and they like to assume people are a certain way simply because of who they are or what they look or honestly what they assume we are because we're a big family or because of this or because of color, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
a mix of the bunch. So it was what it was, and I am very, very professional. I always have been. I'm not the one to get into drama. I never have been. It's not worth it to me. I do my thing. I go home. I go home to my regular life, and it is what it is. But like, you don't cross the
Yeah.
kids line. The
The kids.
kids that's the big no for me.
Yep.
So that was said. I said my piece. Since then, there's been many people saying, you know, agreeing and many people thanking me for it and having a million other stories because originally I was like, wow, like imagine if it's just me. Like maybe I'm overreacting, like maybe but then at the amount of people that came to me with stories, I was like, oh, I don't feel bad. I'm like, now I feel bad for the fact that nobody said anything.
Yeah.
And I even had girls like that. I was like, this is why people do things like that because nobody opens their mouth. I was like, if you're scared to say something, come to me. Find another like veteran who's been around a long time, or find another person who you confide in and say, hey, this is making me feel some type of way. Can you help me? Because people keep their mouth shut, and then that's when things just keep
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah. I've
So
I've I've had a couple of So it's funny because like, and I'll talk about this with you because I definitely, and I talked about the actually crazy enough, I talked about this earlier today with a client of mine. Uh, Anytime that I bring a female on the show, right? Anytime, I've had to at least met them in person because I could only imagine what DMs look like for female wrestlers, and like to see somebody just pop in and be like, "Yo, hey, you want to come on my podcast?" Mixed in with a bunch of other like bullshit stuff. Like, dude, I don't want to know what you guys send to females at all.
yeah, we get some very
Yeah,
fun, interesting
yeah.
messages sometimes.
Yeah, and but I'm like, it goes back to I meet everybody in person. I talk to them because I want to bring them on the show because I want to have conversation. But what ends up happening is, you develop like a kinship with people. Like,
Yeah,
I have a lot of acquaintances, but I also have a few people I have those acquaintances I consider friends. So I have a couple of my friends that'll come into my DMs and be like, "Hey, what would you do in this situation?" Because they know at the end of the day, I'm not gonna be like, "Well, wait a minute, you don't got a man," and like they all
right,
know. They all know. Like, first of all, I'm locked up, and I ain't trying to talk to nobody like that.
right,
So
right, right,
I'm like, yo, yeah. I was like, actually, this is the thing I would do. This is the situation I would handle, But I think there's a line that, like, to go back to the point of what it is, like, there's a line, right? Like, if you being in the business, right? If I said something to you, it's obviously in jest in the ring. But
right,
kids are never that unless you're like super okay with this, like with
right.
your person.
Like
There's a
exactly.
line you just never cross.
Right, right, and it's the funny thing is if it's just in the ring or something like I've had people across the ring for me be like, "Oh, your kids are whatever," or like oh my god, there's even oh my god, the South Coast Sign Crew, where they do the signs all the time,
Yeah,
different
yeah,
shows. Those guys, like they make even your kids hate you signs. Like it's all in good fun. Like
yeah,
they've really, those guys are sweethearts, and like even in the ring, like I've had somebody like, point out like, look, your kid's booing you. And I'm looking at him like, shut up. My kid loves you. So, like, at the end of the day, they would never, like, cross that line. There's just a
yeah,
line you don't cross. And
yeah,
honestly, if there's times where you can cross the line, like there was a storyline not too long in Chaotic where they mentioned someone's baby and they were like, oh, your baby thinks you're going to be, um, a coward when you're older, blah blah blah. And like they mentioned it, and I was in the back, and I was like, "Oh, you don't do that." But like it was part, it's all part of it, so it was
yeah,
fine. But like they knew what was happening, it's all
yeah,
part. Like, but the issue with what happened, it wasn't that it was nothing to do with storylines, nothing. It was just specifically out of the blue, simply because I need to make a comment about these children or
yeah,
whatever. And I know for a fact that they've tried to minimize it since then, and they're still trying to minimize. And at the end of the day, I was like, you're gonna minimize everything you want because you still want to be around. And I'm not letting you. So it is what it is. You do your thing. I'm gonna do my thing. Clearly, people, if they thought I was wrong, nobody would have supported us, and they have. So I'm done. I'm done
Yeah,
with that.
yeah. I mean, you came out looking like a rainbow in the whole situation.
Yeah,
And I was right there because, and I mentioned it too. I think like I was in the back, with ice on my head because it's like God, that huge knot.
yep,
But I was like, God, I wish I would have heard said comment and came to the back, or just if I was in the front, wherever I was, I just wanted to be a part because like I was like, damn, I was like to show support because obviously like I have a kid and like if my daughter is sitting in the front row and you told my daughter you said some shit like that to my kid, I would hope that you would expect me to come see me at the end of the show
exactly,
because
exactly.
yeah, there are a few
Exactly.
things.
And it's
There,
not, I mean, and it happen it can happen with, like, it's happened with, like, things with kids is a, like I said, kids is a hands down, like, mama bear comes out, like, my whole, now that I've grown as a character, the whole, you mentioned, like, Portuguese princess and,
yeah,
the Portuguese powerhouse. Well, essentially, the Portuguese princess, side note, Portuguese princess came from the fact that Ariel. My wrestling name was Ariel from the get. So I was always Ariel. I had like a. I used to have the thinking of like Cher. I don't need a last name. So I was Madonna, Ariel. Back in the day, that's how it was,
yeah,
So I
yeah,
was
yeah.
just Ariel.
What's up? It is your friendly neighborhood Red Dog, and thank you for checking out this episode of the Three Count Podcast. Whether that was Chaz friends, Red Dog friends, Damien friends, the Films Lounge, now into the ring, now entering 201, or now returning to the ring, all those great episodes. You should really be liking, commenting, and even sharing this with your friends, family, whoever it may be. But what you all should be doing is checking us out on all of our social media platforms at 3 Count Pod, whether that's on IG, Twitch, you check us out on Threads, whatever it may be. And if you go check us out on X, it is 3count_pod. Check us out on YouTube, as well as Facebook, on Rumble, on Apple Music, on Spotify, all those fun things. Tell your mom about us, your dad about us, your aunties, your uncles, your brothers, your sisters, your cousins, and your best friends and your enemies, because we love haters too. Do all that stuff, and then, last but not least, buy our merch on foryourwear.com or prowrestlingtees.com. Kawaii!